Hello everybody. If you want all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 940, The Portrait's Grip. Upper Advanced. Elena adjusted the lamp above the easel and leaned closer to the canvas. The portrait of Lady Harrington had arrived at the restoration studio 3 weeks earlier, its surface cracked and darkened by 2 centuries of neglect. The eyes of the painted woman, once soft and distant, now seemed sharper under the bright light. Elena mixed a thin glaze and began the delicate work of lifting the old varnish. By the 4th evening she noticed the change. The pupils in the portrait had shifted a fraction toward the left edge of the frame. Elena stepped back, wiped her brush, and checked the angle of the lamp. Nothing had moved. She returned to the table, made a note in her logbook, and continued. The following night the shift was unmistakable. Lady Harrington's gaze now met Elena's directly. The painted mouth, previously closed in a polite smile, had parted just enough to reveal the edge of a tooth. Elena set down her tools and walked the length of the studio. The other canvases remained as they had been, only this one watched her. She locked the door and switched on every light. Then she telephoned the curator who had commissioned the work. The line rang without answer. Elena returned to the easel. The portrait's lips had curved further. A line of red paint, still wet, glistened at the corner of the mouth. Elena reached for a cotton swab. As the tip touched the canvas, the paint recoiled, drawing itself into a tighter smile. A low sound rose from the surface, like breath forced through dry paper. Elena dropped the swab. The sound continued, forming syllables that scraped against the air. "You see me now?" Elena backed away until her shoulders met the wall. The painted woman leaned forward within the frame, her powdered hair brushing the inner edge of the gilt. The studio lights flickered once, then steadied. Elena's reflection in the glass of a nearby cabinet showed her own face pale and rigid. Behind that reflection, the portrait continued to speak. 200 years I waited. The varnish sealed me. You opened the seal." Elena forced herself to the telephone again. This time the curator answered. She described the movement, the voice, the wet paint. The curator laughed, then grew quiet when Elena refused to laugh with him. He promised to come in the morning. Elena hung up and turned back to the canvas. Lady Harrington's hand, previously folded in her lap, now rested against the lower edge of the frame. Fingers pressed outward. The canvas bulged. Elena seized a palette knife and held it ready. The painted hand pushed harder. A seam appeared along the gilt, and a fine dust of pigment drifted to the floor. The hand emerged fully, pale and cold, the rings on its fingers still gleaming with the same metallic sheen Elena had restored only days before. The arm followed. Lady Harrington rose from the canvas as though climbing from a shallow pool. Her gown, stiff with painted folds, softened as it left the surface. She stood in the studio, breathing the same air. Elena raised the knife. The woman from the portrait smiled with the mouth that had once been only pigment. "Your body will hold me better than the canvas ever did." Elena struck. The blade passed through the painted shoulder and met no resistance. Lady Harrington stepped closer. Her hand closed around Elena's wrist. The contact burned like ice. Elena's vision narrowed. She felt her own weight shift, her balance fail. The studio tilted. When the light steadied again, Elena looked down at her hands. They were no longer her own. The rings sat on fingers that belonged to another century. She tried to speak and heard only the dry scrape of paint. The frame of the portrait stood empty before her. Beyond it, the open space of the studio. The former body moved with measured steps toward the door. Lady Harrington, wearing Elena's face and clothes, unlocked the latch and stepped into the corridor. The door closed. Elena pressed her painted palms against the inside of the canvas. The surface would not yield. Outside, footsteps faded down the stairs. In the morning, the curator arrived to find the portrait finished, its subject restored to perfect clarity. The eyes of the painted woman stared outward with an expression of pure and permanent terror. The restorer was gone. The curator examined that surface, noted the exceptional quality of the final glaze, and arranged for the painting to be delivered to the gallery that afternoon. If you learned a new word today, please make sure to subscribe so you can practice again next time. Vocabulary notes. Glaze. Noun. A thin, transparent layer of paint or liquid applied over a surface to protect it or change its appearance, especially in painting or ceramics. Example. Elena mixed a thin glaze and began the delicate work of lifting the old varnish. Similar words. Coating, film, wash, layer, varnish. Recoiled, verb. Move suddenly backwards or away from something, usually because of fear, surprise, or disgust. Example. As the tip touched the surface, the paint recoiled, drawing itself into a tighter smile. Similar words. Flinched, shrank, withdrew, retreated, jerked back. Pigment. Noun. A natural or artificial substance that gives colour to paint, ink, or other materials. Example. A fine dust of pigment drifted to the floor. Similar words. Colouring, dye, tint, hue, colourant. Sheen. Noun. A soft, smooth and shining surface or appearance. Example. The rings on its fingers still gleaming with the same metallic sheen Elena had restored only days before. Similar words. Gloss, lustre, shine, polish, gleam. Measured. Adjective. Careful, controlled and deliberate without hurry or sudden movement. Example. Her former body moved with measured steps towards the door. Similar words. Deliberate, steady, controlled, calculated, unhurried. Story and image generated by Grok. Animation generated by Kling AI at onemin.ai. To read, listen, see all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, Unicorn Heads.